Hello, I'm Susan Keating, CEO of Women Corporate Directors. Today we are going to talk about the relationship between board diversity, environmental, social, and governance strategies, also known as ESG, and long-term shareholder value. Several events from the past year, including the COVID-19 pandemic, social unrest, and crippling cyber attacks, introduced new risks to companies around the globe. As a result of these challenges, corporate board members are placing greater emphasis on ESG, including diversity, equity, and inclusion. According to a recent survey conducted by KPMG, 2/3 of board directors recognize that ESG issues are important to a company's long-term performance, and an overwhelming 90% are reassessing how to address key stakeholder interests. At the same time, the survey found that 74% of directors have concern about the lack of board diversity in planning for the company's future. Larry Fink, the chairman and CEO of BlackRock, noted in his 2021 letter to CEOs that purposeful companies with better ESG profiles outperform their peers. Mr. Fink also urged companies to disclose long-term DEI plans in sustainability reporting and recommended a more holistic approach as opposed to constraining where DEI-related issues such as racial justice, economic inequality, or community engagement fit into one of the ESG pillars. An astute example he cited was the disproportionate impact climate change has on low-income communities, showcasing the interconnectivity of ESG topics. Currently, ESG and DEI are at the top of boardroom agendas and broadly part of the public discourse as companies navigate increasingly complex and wide-ranging issues. During WCD's June 2021 Visionary Award celebration, Melody Hobson, the president and co-CEO of Ariel Investments and chairwoman of Starbucks, indicated that stakeholders are demanding and expecting corporate leadership and board members to have points of view because society is questioning our values. Diversity and other ESG issues are no longer special projects, said Kathleen Sumner-Ligacki, who is a corporate director and spoke at WCD's June 2021 Global Institute. She noted that ESG should be embedded in the strategic fabric of a company. Increasing risk to companies is new regulations and more mandates specific to DE&I. Several states in the US, countries across Europe, Latin America, and Asia, and organizations like NASDAQ have introduced board diversity mandates and disclosure requirements for companies. However, while some stakeholders applaud these efforts, others believe a free market approach would be most effective in achieving DE&I goals. Regardless of where you stand, it is undeniable that this dialogue is encouraging companies, directors, and nominating and governance committees to reconsider the composition of their boards. To effect change in board composition, companies need to evaluate the company's needs through a strategic lens. This means defining the meaning of diversity within the context of the organization's goals and mission, ensuring the board reflects the makeup of its stakeholders, and identifying qualified candidates that can offer insights and perspectives needed to effectively meet stakeholder interests. When looking at how far boards have come, there is some encouraging evidence that corporations are getting more diverse. According to the 2020 Spencer Stuart Board Index, almost 100% of the top 200 S&P 500 companies have minority directors, which are defined as Black, African American, Hispanic, Latinx, and Asian. In 2020, 42% of new directors added to Fortune 500 boards represented racial minorities, according to the 2021 Board Monitor US report. So while this is good news, there are still diversity targets that need to be addressed, such as those related to gender and the LGBTQ community. Globally, the average percentage of women on corporate boards is only about 26%, as reported in the BoardX 2020 Global Gender Diversity Analysis. Global data on LGBTQ inclusion on corporate boards is largely non-existent. The only definitive data was from the US, where less than 0.3% of Fortune 500 directors are openly LGBTQ, according to the Out Leadership Forum Initiative. In closing, I go back to sentiments articulated by Mr. Fink, Ms. Hobson, and Ms. Ligaki. Diversity in the boardroom and the workforce is vital to effectively addressing stakeholder interests, and ESG must be embedded in strategy. Companies can build and achieve ESG strategies and drive meaningful change, but it has to start in the boardroom, and board composition is key. Thank you for joining me today to talk about this important topic. More resources are available on board and workforce diversity on WCD's website, womencorporatedirectors.org.